and welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Today we're talking about the project Everything Must Go. This project will take the form of a video and sound fieldwork across several flea markets and one mega market in Ukraine. The title borrows its meaning from a term used by U.S. stores that are going out of business. Serving as a metaphor for the structural and societal clearing out in post-Soviet Ukraine, Everything Must Go will consider national and personal identity transformations in the context of social relations. To discuss this project and more, we're joined in the studio today by the US-based artist Slinko, a resident at IZOLYATSIA cultural platform. So hello and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You are an artist living in New Jersey, United States of America. And your artistic experience, your artistic path is rooted to travel and research and is informed by history and social anthropology. So basically you investigate the effects and workings of power in society and individuals, right? Could you share your experience with the audience?
It varies by location, so every project is heavily affected by the context. For example, while I was in Morocco for 6 months, I struggled with what to create there, and I realized that the only way I could produce a project there was to exhibit it in a place where the most common people could see it. So I chose to take a donkey ride, like an actual donkey ride to the local big square, Jamal Fna, and I installed a small installation of local objects and sculpture that I created while I was there in the residency, and I just shared with people. And the most interesting part about that experiment was the reaction of just passers-by and people who are not necessarily endowed with art background or art history, and it was very fresh and very eye-opening in a way.
You often use historic narratives, cultural artifacts, and political symbols to create your projects. How do you put that all together?
It's a very good question, because it could be, you know, all those things could be very dry together. So I think the way I approach them is I find a personal entrance, something that resonates with my personal history, with my emotions, or with my relationship to specific historic events.
Is this your first time here in Kyiv?
No.
I know that you've studied in Kharkiv.
I did.
What brought you back to Ukraine?
So I left in '96, which was a very difficult time in Ukraine, and I left for the United States. And since then, I've been coming back every couple of years, I would say.
Do you have projects running here?
So this is the first official project. The one project that I did on my own before was in, I think it was 2014, right before the Maidan events. Right. And actually, ironically, I was interested in documenting standing Soviet icons like Lenin statues and so forth. And my friends joke now that after I did that, they all fell down.
That could be it, you know, that could have done it. Anyways, the project you're working at right now while residing at IZOLYATSIA is, as I have already mentioned, called Everything Must Go.
Yeah.
Could you tell a little bit more about it?
So this project was inspired by a very small event. I was visiting my family in Kharkiv, and I went to like a local flea market. And there was this one woman, she had like an argument with somebody at the market. You know, there's a very lively situation at the flea markets. People always talk about life. And she said something that really struck a chord. And she said that she used to listen to Voice of America, hoping that one day, in Soviet times, hoping that one day she would see a different kind of life. And then it turned out that she was greatly disappointed by what she is experiencing today. So there's a rift between the expectations of how things could be in a different system, for example, communist system versus capitalist system, And there's also a generational difference. So these are very interesting contrasts that made me think about the transitional times that Ukraine is undergoing still.
So what's the project going to look like? Is it going to be a painting exhibition, a photo exhibition, an art installation, a play? I don't know. What's it going to be?
The play is, I might take your suggestion and think about that, because it is a little bit play-like. When I go, I've already visited markets 4 times here, a couple of times in Kharkiv, and the couple of times at Petrivka. And it is like human theater, so that's why I'm reacting to your suggestion about play. However, I'm not a playwright, so I think I approach it as a fieldwork. So I basically record and collect conversations and visuals and little bits of video, and I pay specific attention to what people are saying, what kind of conversations they're having around the transactions, and also what kind of objects are they trading or buying or selling. Because you could tell a lot in the fieldwork like that, the value of different objects. For example, what struck me, actually, I don't know if you remember, but I remember my grandparents used to exhibit, you know, in a big family dinner, the table would be full of crystal balls, and that would be the sign of, you know, generosity, and a little bit bourgeoisie, and kind of like it was the height of Soviet, you know,
social ladder.
Right. It was something to have and something to exhibit and something to eat from at the special events only, right? Yeah. And actually, apparently, crystal isn't so valued anymore. Like, so there's all these crystal bowls and goblets that just kind of like laying in the dust. So that was interesting to me. That's almost like this kind of like the reversal of the symbolism.
Right.
So I'm looking at these kind of very subtle symbolic transactions or transformations of values, or even just people talking to each other about their struggles, about their desires, about their memories. So I'm trying to capture that. So at the end, I would probably edit it into this non-linear narrative video. You know?
Okay. While working here, or maybe not here, somewhere else abroad, right? Do you collaborate with any Ukrainian artists?
I have not collaborated with Ukrainian artists. I have not collaborated with any artists because I feel like I'm very strong-headed. So it's hard for me to work with someone who has maybe different ideas. But I do collaborate, or I work together with people, for example, like anthropologists. Or I'm very interested in talking to maybe an economist.
Why economists?
Well, because I'm trying to understand the relationship between human-to-human interactions and different market systems. For example, in the Soviet time, of course, we weren't open to this kind of hustle, making your own money, running your own business, because everything was, quote, taken care of. And so not everybody had adapted easily. So there's a big division between those who were able to move on and adapt to a different system, and between those who fell behind and kind of created permanent underclass. So from the economic perspective, I'd like to learn more about what does that mean in terms of from pure numbers to human relations.
Okay. How long are you going to stay here?
I'm going to stay till like the 24th of October.
Okay.
So I have a long list to do.
What happens next? What are your plans for the future?
Immediate next would be to edit all this fieldwork recordings.
Meaning after this project is done?
After this project is done, there's a next project already planned. It's going to take place in Santa Fe, Art Institute Santa Fe, in New Mexico in the United States. And actually, it's kind of a continuation of mining the Soviet past. The reason why I'm interested in it is because it's so contrasted between good and evil. So there were some ideals that could have been appropriated, but there were big failures. So one of the things is has to do with labor and workers' clubs. Mm-hmm. So those buildings, they're early buildings in Russian constructivism or Soviet constructivism, and a lot of them are actually in Ukraine. There's a new book coming out. I don't remember the name, but it highlights modernism in Ukraine. But anyway, the idea that let's say a factory or a plant takes care of its workers, mm-hmm. provides living quarters and provides recreational quarters. So those kind of architectural models are interesting in terms of creating a public space where the people who give the labor to the factory or plant also get something in return besides just the monetary mm-hmm. Remuneration. And I think I would like to stage that project as an experimental architecture models. Mm-hmm. So there would be scale models where in a group setting I would open it to interpretation of other people. So we'll see. It'd be like partial sculpture, partial public project, and partial architecture study.
Well, there's a lot to look forward to. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
That was the US-based artist Slinko, a resident at IZOLYATSIA cultural platform. Thank you so much for watching Head to Head. Stay tuned with UATV for more.